Hey everyone, it's Alex, and today we actually have ourselves quite a big OTA. The last several ones in the past have been relatively small, just +1 here, +1 there, but this one here has more cards, 8 in total, and also it has cards that are very meta relevant right now in terms of overall win rate, which are getting nerfed. And then you have the Season Pass card that's getting buffed in a recent addition to the Spotlight Caches, which is also being buffed. So very significant changes in this particular OTA, and it does get started with Captain Carter. Captain Carter is a Season Pass card right now, and according to Untapped-based statistics over the last 7 days in Infinite only, you're looking at a win rate of 44% and a meta share of 9%. This is okay. The win rate is perfectly makes sense to me because, first of all, it was a little awkward to get the setup for Captain Carter, and it seems like a lot of the ongoing decks that are currently being played are all in on ongoing, and Enchantress tends to be a rather good tech piece right now for that reason. So you are seeing a lot of Enchantress, and as a result, these ongoing decks just get absolutely wrecked when Enchantress drops, wipes out 4 cards at once with a single play. And so it wouldn't surprise me that Captain Carter's win rate is affected by that. However, what I will say is that it also feels like a very awkward play because of the way you have to position it. And it doesn't help that Dum Dum Duggan got removed from the high voltage, which was the expected card and should have helped Captain Carter, and instead Toxie was placed there instead. So what we have now is a 4-3 Captain Carter, which has been buffed to a 3-2, which is very significant. This 3-2 Captain Carter right away makes the act of organizing your board state easier because it's simply less expensive. It's supposed to be in the front line, and as a 4-drop, you're often playing it on the back line naturally, and so you have to like create the macro space for it as a 4-drop. As a 3-drop, it feels much more natural to play it onto a front line some more. Obviously, there's Surfer consideration. However, the biggest consideration that there is its synergy with Moonstone. Moonstone is going to have this kind of like reciprocal effect on it where, you know, you can play Moonstone on top of the Captain Carter, and then, you know, the Moonstone is going to buff what's behind it, which is pretty significant as well. So you know, Moonstone obviously in these ongoing shells does a lot, and Moonstone's going to be applying its power, which is already significantly higher than that of Captain Carter, onto the cards either beside or behind it. So very interesting overall with Captain Carter. I would suggest that this, did they not sell enough season passes? You know, is the kind of the jaded view of like, oh, well, I guess the season pass isn't selling particularly well. Even though honestly, like, ongoing has felt in it like it pretty decent, but I think it's because Goliath has been an absolutely remarkable addition to it, whereas Captain Carter has felt a little suspect at times, especially with the ability to counter it all together with one individual card. So, anyways, I'm all for this because I think that, you know, you want the Season Pass cards to be relevant, and I think ongoing, if, you know, this win rate would indicate anything, did need a little bit of something, and so this is a significant change, a massive buff. A single power, like, obviously the power is lower, but a single power loss for a cost? Well, you take that all day long if you're Captain Carter, so a very significant change. Much like Infinity Ultron, seeing a very significant change, going from a 5-6 to a 5-8. Now, it's also worth noting that you have a couple of the stones, namely the one that produces like the drone, and of course the one that doubles Infinity Ultron's power, does disproportionately benefit from this increase in power. Running a 44% win rate, no, it's not a typo, they happen to be the same, and an 11% meta share, Infinity Ultron felt very awkward. I think one of the challenges with Infinity Ultron specifically was that you had to commit your turn 6, or I mean you were encouraged to commit your turn 6 to using those stones to the greatest effectiveness, and the stones themselves carry a lot of weight as to whether or not you're able to close out a game. If you think about how impactful turn 6 plays have to be, you have the likes of Galactus, you have the likes of, you know, Magneto disruption, and Magneto doesn't even see a lot of play. So it's like turn 6s often have to be very impactful. Think about what a Sarah Surfer deck does on turn 6. And with Infinity Ultron, you kind of had to really rely on high quality RNG to get those pop-off capabilities. So you have the kind of inherent RNG with Infinity Ultron. Now the developer note says they are working on some more substantial changes to the package, so it looks like they're very committed to making Infinity Ultron a playable shell, a playable archetype as a whole, because as of right now, I think there's a couple stones that are just too bad. The drone one's pretty good, the doubling power is good, the mini Wong is good in the Mind Stone, the movement one kind of sucks, which is now better because Infinity Ultron has more power, by the way, but they just need to be better overall and not feel like, well, I low rolled on the stones. It's like the stones should just be, okay, cool, these are what I'm playing, I still have a chance to win. And so we start at the +2 power. It wouldn't surprise me if this is not enough for Infinity Ultron. It is a significant buff. However, at the end of the day, I think Infinity Ultron giving up that turn 6 to play the stones, those stones need to be very impactful. And so as a result, we'll have to see statistically how it shapes up towards the end of the season. And now we go to the major nerfs, and it gets started with Sam Wilson, Captain America. And I know that this is one that a lot of people have been clamoring for, running a 35% meta share and a 53% win rate. There are a lot of decks that really benefit from Sam Wilson, Captain America, just for that ease of curving, the initiative granting capability of the shield. You even have the Strange Supreme, who's a card I absolutely love. And you're just sucking that shield, and like that's it. It's like, oh, I either play Sam Wilson on 2 and I do the shield stuff and get the value, or I just suck up that shield. I don't play Sam Wilson later anyways, and I got my play in Strange Supreme. So it's like, it's kind of fascinating how Sam Wilson is kind of being utilized almost unilaterally across a ton of different decks, and that's what makes this particularly unique. Sam Wilson is not a niche card. It feels like it goes kind of everywhere. The change for the shield to go from a 1 cost to a 0 cost was a significant hit at its viability in something like a Zoo. It does not get hit by Khazar. It does not get hit by the Marvel Boy. It does not allow you to play Call Obsidian. And so its versatility was reduced, and yet still it's being played in 35% of decks. And I think that what we're seeing here is this de facto extremely strong 2-drop situation in Marvel Snap, where, before, don't forget, it was Black Widow for the longest time, which was the de facto best in slot 2 card. And then now it's been Sam Wilson, especially ever since the nerf to Iron Patriot. And Iron Patriot also had a nerf to the Rocket and Groot, both of which were being played together. So, Sam Wilson, Captain America. This did not surprise me, but also, I actually don't think that this card is as good as the play rate would indicate. Like, when you see a 35% meta share, you would think that this card's absolutely broken insane, like OG Alioth. It's not OG Alioth. It is a super good card, but for me, it doesn't cross that soul-crushing part, but it is everywhere. So maybe this had to happen. A 2-1 though, like a 2-2, sorry, is not a crazy nerf, probably a very necessary nerf. However, we just need some more meta variety. I think that's what this nerf is designed to do. Take the gas off of Sam Wilson ever so slightly. Now this here, I would say surprised me a little bit. Scream going from a 2-2 to a 2-1 is a very significant nerf. Obviously it steals power. Obviously it's a linchpin card to that archetype. And it is running a 56% win rate according to Untapped for the last 7 days, infinite only, and a 6% meta share. Now this is unique because we've talked about this in the past before. So we know Scream is really good. Internally, they were saying it's been the best card in Marvel Snap essentially since its release. And, Cozy and I both gave this card 5 stars. We both gave this card 5 stars on its release and in the preview. So this card has been a meta definer, which is great. And the reason why Scream has been so good lately too is because those Scream decks were good, but what really made them pop off was the fact that you had this very consistent draw. You had, on turn 2, you had Scream, great, I can snap. I had Iron Patriot, okay, I could probably snap. You had the Sam Wilson, you might even be able to snap. And then otherwise you had the Kraven. So like your 2 slot was occupied by great cards that were incredibly synergistic with that deck that allowed the later cards to do their thing, and Scream was no exception to that. However, it also brings to argument, I'd be interested in your idea in the comments, by the way. This is something that like I struggle with trying to determine how I feel. Do you want nerfs to cards running a 5-6% play rate, despite the fact their win rate's high? You know what I mean? Like, yes, Scream might be internally statistically an outlier, but Sam Wilson is not as strong as Scream, right? He's running a 35% meta share, I think, because obviously the breadth of the decks that he can be played in. They nerfed Sam Wilson, who was also in the Scream decks, by the way. Make no mistake. And you also nerf Scream. It's like, okay, you have a 35% meta card versus a 6% meta card. The 6% meta card, ironically, has a higher win rate. Do you nerf based on the outlying performance for the small group of people that continue to play that deck? Or do you nerf for the overall meta health and the meta impact, which is exactly what Sam Wilson is? I would argue that Scream is a significantly better card than Sam Wilson, even though it has a smaller meta share. The win rate would support that. But is it worth letting a low play rate card with a high win rate slide for a while? And we saw this a long time ago with that first big nerf to Dawkins. Not even a big nerf to Dawkins. I'm saying Dawkins. I meant Dark Hawk. Darkhawk. Darkhawk got nerfed when he was seeing almost no play. And they actually kind of said in the developer note, they're like, hey, this card's actually super good. We're not sure why people aren't playing it, but we're nerfing it anyways. And I think the play rate was like 2% or something. Absolutely insane. So Scream's obviously more popular than that and has consistently been very popular, but has seen a ton of nerfs. Cannonball got nerfed. We got buffed back up, I guess. Arrow got nerfed. Lots of changes to those shells. And so Scream overall getting a power lost. I'll tell you, it does make sense, but I'm interested in your kind of conversation points down below about whether or not you think it's worth attacking cards with high run rates below meta shares. And now we're off to the buffs to some of the older cards, and it gets started with Rhino. Rhino goes from a 3/3 that destroys an enemy location to a 3/6 that doesn't destroy the location, but adds a rock to your side of a location. More feasting for Strange Supreme, I guess, especially on curve. I didn't think that Strange Supreme needed help, but now you got a 3/6 Rhino that feeds the Strange Supreme. We live in wild times. What I will say, though, is I kind of still wish it ruined the location. It's Rhino. Let him destroy the location. That is a unique ability that's not replicated in the game. I like the idea of having ruins. Let him still destroy the location and add the rock. My question to you is, would you rather have a 3/6 that does not destroy the location or a 3/5 that destroys the location and adds the rock, right? So that's my conundrum. I think 3/5 destroy the location, add a rock probably would have been fine, considering you have, Luna Snow runs a 3/6 stat line. It has a reciprocal effect. In theory, destroying a location is a reciprocal effect. I don't know. It's also worth knowing that this card saw literally so little play that even going to a 30-day filter, we had no stats on tap. Like, literally nobody was coping with Rhino. Like, even C3 gamers were like, nah, he's too crap. I don't want Rhino in my deck. So this is one of the last ones. I think this was on the last time Cozy and I did these cards suck on the Snapchat. I'm pretty sure Rhino was our thumbnail. Damn it, they're knocking out the thumbnail cards. They got the White Queen, who actually I really enjoy. Now they got Rhino, especially in conjunction with Strange Supreme. This is actually kind of crazy. I guess next up is going to be Scarlet Witch. They're going to have to do something with Scarlet Witch, who's ironically in the developer note. They're saying that Scarlet Witch usurped Rhino. They've been in the gutter together. What are we talking about? Scarlet Witch is not a good card. Even Nocturne has been complete. By the way, let it be known, I literally called that the power nerf to Nocturne was going to destroy that card's viability. Everyone's like, no, Alex, it's still an amazing card. It's still going to be one of the top cards in Marvel Snap. 3/5 to 3/4. When was the last time you saw Nocturne? Boom. But no, seriously, Nocturne, where have you at? It's probably better than people think it is. Maybe Nocturne makes a comeback with Hydra Stomper coming back out, right? So maybe I'm speaking a little out of line. We got to see what happens next week. Phastos, going from a 3/3 to a 3/4, actually running middling statistics at a 49% win rate. I'd like to see the Series 4 cards get buffed. Phastos running a 3% meta share. I do think that this makes him significantly better. By the way, it makes him 1 point better, but it is a significant buff. And I do think there are a couple shells that can utilize Phastos with good effectiveness that probably don't see enough experimentation. In particular, the Eternal style Surfer decks that run Makari, Phastos. I was even cooking one. It wasn't ready for prime time, so I didn't show it off. But I had like Makari, Phastos. I was running the Strong Guy to dump the hand, stuff like that. I thought it was really fun. But yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll bring that cook out. Maybe I'll continue to work with it now that Phastos got a buff, because I do think that Phastos does represent a very strong 3-power play. Phastos on turn 3, then you have like the likes of Galacta, Gwenpool on 4. Turn 5, we have so many options on turn 5 now. Even the Infinity Ultron theoretically was performing pretty good in the Surfer decks. So ultimately, Phastos, seeing that additional point of power, I don't think he needed it. I think that his effect is actually pretty good, but this will put him back on the radar. This will get people cooking with Phastos, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see some decent shells utilizing Phastos upcoming. That's going to take us to Toxin, and even the developer note says that, like, you might be surprised by this, and I do agree, because I do think that Bounce is a very high skill archetype, and I think that Toxin, ironically, is one of the pieces of Bounce that really allows that archetype to be playable by the wider audience. If you're like, you know what, I feel like playing Bounce today. You never used to be able to do that because it was so complex with its lines. It was just a headache. Kind of like what Move feels like sometimes. Toxin made Bounce so much more approachable. And I loved the card at release. I gotta be honest with you, I don't think that Toxin really needed the buff here. But Bounce as a whole is probably missing something with the continuous power creep that we've been getting. We haven't gotten a great bounce card since Toxin himself. So getting a 1 power buff is not insignificant. This is probably just a, hey guys, did you guys forget that bounce exists? This is hoping that someone cooks something fascinating that can make a top 10 list or something like that, but bounce has not been meta relevant. They also, of course, did buff Joaquin Torres Falcon, who could potentially be a core part of a bounce cell. So now you have Toxin, Joaquin Torres Falcon, and maybe you can make some magic happen with those guys in conjunction with one another. So I'm really interested in seeing this because I do think that Toxin is a fantastic card in Marvel Snap. I think it's great. I think it's great for that archetype. And now let's see if we can cook a little bit with bounce. And then we have Peni Parker's Spider. And it's getting buffed from a 3-3 to a 3-4. Peni Parker remains the same. So you're just getting 1 additional power on the Spider. The merger still works as it always has. This will merge, allow you to move. And Peni Parker, if merged, will give the +1 additional energy for the next turn. So this is just a straight up power buff. I like it. I actually have been playing more Peni Parker than usual, simply because I've been playing a lot more ramp decks than usual. I was trying to ramp Infinity Ultron. I was trying to ramp some other stuff, right? So I have been playing some Peni Parker here and there. I do like the flexibility of Spider. I do like the ramp option of Peni into Spider. And overall, you know what? It wasn't seeing much play. And now we're seeing a number of buffs to that season, right? We have like Luna Snow, very playable. Honestly, unfortunately not playable with Strange Supreme because he sucks the ice cube before you get the energy, because the energy is applied on the start of the next turn and not at the end of your turn. So poor Luna Snow getting no suck Supreme synergy. Very unfortunate, but Peni Parker probably needed a little bit of love, and of course Rocket and Groot did get nerfed. That is going to end this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. We got another one for you on the screen if you're interested in watching some more Marvel Snap content, and we'll see you in that next one.